me today. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are
Good. Yeah, really well, thank you. I thought we'd start if you just wanted to introduce yourself, a bit about your background and your role at Wagonx.
Yes, I'm currently head of engineering for Wagonx.
Yeah.
Been in tech probably, makes me feel old now, about 15 years.
Really?
Yeah, so I started quite young, kind of doing freelance, I say freelance, hobby websites, kind of focusing more on design and kind of transition. I went to uni to do graphic design, and then throughout each project kind of took it the tech road, kind of building interactive magazines, websites, apps. So it was kind of a natural path after uni to kind of dig more into tech.
Yeah, nice. Okay. And then you found yourself at Wagonx as head of engineering.
Yeah, so been at Wagonx now, coming up to, a year and a half, coming up 2 years. I think it's been about 2 years since the process. We previously, before that, I was developer team lead, and the kind of position opened up at Wagonx to come on board as their first in-house technical kind of resource, working closely with the CTO to move everything in-house and own the entire technical function.
Wow, what an opportunity.
Yeah, it's a bit of a scary leap, kind of just going from a kind of a team lead kind of position to kind of a head of engineering and kind of the pressures it all comes with.
Definitely. So I guess that leads really nicely onto the topic we've chosen today, which is how to build successful tech teams and the culture around them. So I guess it'd be really nice to understand kind of what that topic means to you, how we've come about it. Is it something to do with the journey at Wagonx?
Yes, building successful teams. I've kind of started, I guess, team leading from uni, where I was art director of the internal design agency.
Yeah.
So that was kind of leading my peers to kind of work on briefs and kind of reach the outcomes for our clients. So it's always been an interesting topic for me, is how to get the best out of people, kind of find out what motivates them. And kind of then, transition into that to, I guess, leading the team, building the team, and actually, I guess, being the line manager, because this was the first experience of being a line manager, not just kind of team lead.
Yes, that makes sense. Okay, so right, so have you been kind of building out a team at Wagonx? Like, what's the story for you as head of engineering? You mentioned the director, was it, wanted you on board to help with the transition?
Yeah, so the CTO,
CTO,
he was there, and he was kind of the only technical resource, but hands-off resource, where he wanted kind of me to come on board and work with him to recruit a team in-house to kind of switch from having a full external tech function to internal. So that's everyone from the developers, QA, and product as well.
Wow. Okay. So how many people would you have had offshore that you needed to then replicate?
So when
in-house?
when I first joined, the offshore team was, I want to say it was about 12 to 13 people.
Okay.
And that was everything. There was a few more on and off, because with the external resource, it was quite easy to flex up and flex down when needed. We had, I think it was 8 developers, QA, a designer, and a product manager.
Oh, okay, so a whole function there.
Yeah.
So you'd like to think you've done that successfully, hence why we're talking today. So let's start with then what you believe makes a successful team. Like, how would you describe a successful team? And then I guess we can play into how we get there.
Yeah, so for me, a successful team is, I think, first to define it, is define what success is within the company you're in.
Yeah.
So it'd definitely be to know the starting point and work towards that goal. So it would be, to start off with, was bringing everything in-house. So for me, that was the first successful part, is bringing it all in-house and getting the qualities needed. You then start to look towards your objective key results and kind of the target set. Now, being a startup for us, a lot of it's fast-paced movement, and having a team that can handle that agility and kind of the agile kind of processes to get the deliverables needed and within the timeframes.
Yeah, okay. So that adaptability and flexibility from your team. Yeah. And I guess how does culture fit into that? Because that's a big part, right? If it's not right, the team aren't going to be as successful.
Yeah, culture is definitely a tough one. And I think that's different in every company and every team you go into. I try to keep the culture of the tech team, I guess, different from the company team, the culture.
Yeah.
And as long as our culture is right, we can kind of hopefully influence the rest of the company as well.
Yeah.
But keep that strong. And for me, building that culture is to help empower the team as kind of do the work that they kind of need to do, but don't feel worried that they can't ask the questions.
Yeah. Okay. So creating that safe space where people can talk, share ideas, come to you with their problems. Okay, interesting. And you mentioned there, which I thought was really, really interesting, you keep the culture different in the team to the company. So why is that?
I think company culture can be, I gotta watch what I say there, but company culture can be, especially in smaller companies or bigger companies, the culture can be very different. The tech team's very, I think, isolated. In our processes in the tech function are very scripted from the process of kind of doing the work, the ticket in, completing it, and we have key results of what we want to do.
Yeah.
Where other parts of a company are a bit more fluid. So culture to me is also the ways of working.
Okay.
And if the ways of working is a bit impacted because of other company departments, that can kind of feed into the tech team's culture. So I try and keep that slightly isolated and just focus more on our team and that we're doing the best we can.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. So their outputs are high because they're not affected by kind of the noise amongst the business. Got you. Okay. So we've talked about kind of what is a successful team. So how are we going to get there? Like how, when you had this task of taking things from an offshore team to internal, you obviously then had to hire effectively and stuff like that. Like, what was your process around building that team? How did you go about doing it? Such a big question, but yeah, really keen to hear how you did that journey.
Yes. The first process, I guess, with when kind of coming on board with Wagonx was we didn't know how long that would take to build that team. We didn't want to just rush into it, bring it in. We had to make sure all the right variables were there, which first meant getting the offshore team to kind of trust me and look at the processes.
Yeah.
So I'd say the first part of it, the first kind of 4 weeks was we did a code freeze, which was just hands down, let's look at the processes for a platform that's been there, I think it was coming up 5-6 years, to what's the areas that we need to look at and redo. So it was kind of building the trust with the offshore team first, which then allowed us to kind of reach out and kind of recruit. When recruiting, we kind of set up clear what we wanted from a team. It wasn't just the kind of, we wanted a senior developer with 2 mids and a junior. It was kind of, we wanted to find what was right, because not just our company for them, but them for our company. So a lot of the process was kind of reading through obviously the CVs and kind of checking through that process, and then jumping on a call with them. Kind of the first stage of the kind of the interview process that we had was very much tell us about yourself, your experiences, and see if they were a good fit. Because joining a startup's very different to joining a different, more established company. This kind of the scrappiness, the fast pace, and the pivotal changes you can have. Some people aren't cut out for it, which is fine. Some people also, but we were very honest with where we were as a company and where we wanted to get to. After that, we kind of went into looking at kind of the technical assessment, just to see where they were when they're coming in, that we knew where the starting point for them was, and where we needed to get to then help reach our goal.
Okay, so that's the hiring part. So you've gone from building the trust from what you already have and understanding what you already have with the offshore team, understanding you needed to hire an internal team, of course, and building out what that looks like. And then I guess that's not really the end of the story, because how then do they embed and become successful?
Yeah, so that was kind of a good challenge for us, was definitely because we weren't in a rush to kind of get everyone just in.
Yeah.
It was kind of, I think at the time we still had 10 offshore and only 1 internal for a good period.
Okay.
So we were kind of then
really like baby stepping it.
Yeah, baby stepping in to just see what the different variables to make that successful team were. And I guess every recruit that we had in, we would then also base that for the next person to make sure the team gelled. So the kind of cultural fit of, again, the company, but also the existing team.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it took a process of 12 months from when we first started recruiting to when we had an internal team of 4 developers and no offshore. What was quite interesting was we found that every internal kind of developer resource was replaced kind of 2 external.
That's what I was going to say, because you said you had about, what, 10 to 12 off?
10 to 12 off, including
your product,
the product and design and QA. Yeah.
Okay. And then you managed to get 4 developers in-house.
4 in-house, yeah.
And do away with the external team.
Yeah.
Okay, wow, that's such a journey. We've got the 4 developers then, and you had some of the product and developers before externally. Did you hire anyone else? Once you offboarded everyone, did you hire anyone else after 4 developers internal, or how did that work?
Yeah, so internally we kind of kept to just the 4.
Okay.
We got to a point, we had to make sure we were doing it slowly because of the external developers had been there from the start. Like the one guy that was one of the last off-board was the guy who wrote the first line of code for Wagonx.
Wow.
So a lot of domain knowledge that we had to try and transfer across.
Yeah.
Now we haven't recruited more than 4 internal yet.
Okay.
But we have kind of looked at that external resource again to have that flexibility. One of the cases we've got with being a startup is kind of cash, and before we invest in kind of bringing everything internal, because it's a lot more expensive bringing it internal, was kind of looking at that flexible resource of the offshore team again to kind of bring them back in as and when needed for projects to really justify the cost of then bringing an internal resource in.
Yeah. So I guess going back to our topic then, when we think about building a successful team, there you're dealing with external, internal, and that could be a challenge or a reality for a lot of businesses. So I guess, do you think it's fair to say that when building a successful team, you of course need to think about kind of what suits your company best, in that, is it better suited to have the external resource? Is it better suited to have the internal resource, or a blend of the two? Because like you said there, you had the initial goal of bringing everything in-house, but now you've just kind of recognised that for a startup you need sometimes more flexibility and need to be a lot leaner. So to have the external resource like really fits the business model, and ultimately being successful as a tech group. Yeah,
as a tech function, you really got to look at it and not just bring people in for the sake of it. And look at your situation as a company, whether that's offshore team, contractors, because every internal resource you bring in, there's a lot of extra costs that comes with it. So I think it's definitely situational based. For us, bringing it internal was more about owning it. So we had an investment that came in, which within one of our funding rounds, which allowed us to bring it all internal and own it, which helped the product, and it's also helped the kind of output from the team. But with the external resources, kind of having that flexibility to, we have a tight deadline for something. Can the guys we've got internally manage it, or do we need to kind of bring in 1 or 2 externals that have worked on the project before to actually help us get that deliverable?
Got you. Okay. So how did you find kind of embedding your 4 developers? So you've hired them, you don't have the external as much now, and they're the ones that you're leaning on to be successful and get things done. So what's the day-to-day like recipe for them to be successful? How do you enable them to do great work?
Yeah, so I think a lot of it's trust.
Mm.
Kind of one of the quotes, it might have been Steve Jobs now. It was the
We'll have to reference this.
yeah. He was why hire smart people and then tell them what to do.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it might be getting that slightly wrong, but it's that kind of thing. So I like to empower them to kind of I set the technical strategy, kind of and kind of owning the code, but a lot of it's up to them, and they're into it day to day. So it's more, if you've come up with a great idea, kind of let's talk about it, let's discuss everything, and kind of one to upskill them and their knowledge of tech and the industry, but also they're in it more than me, so this kind of they should hopefully be better than me at it from the code perspective. So I tried to let them kind of work as a team to kind of challenges, but know that I'm there if they need to.
Yeah.
If they need me to jump in, need that extra guidance, I'm just a message, just like away. We can jump on a phone call and go through it.
Yeah. Okay. So trust is like your main thing. Anything else?
Yes, I'd say my 3 non-negotiables would be a trust, ownership. So own kind of task you're doing. Own if you say you're going to do something, do it.
Yeah.
But then don't be afraid to kind of reach out if you're not.
Yeah.
Which then ties in nicely to the 3rd non-negotiable, which would be communication.
Right.
I think you always got to have that, and I think that's a key. All 3 of them kind of work very well to kind of be key functions of a successful team, whether it's tech or any other type of team.
Yeah, I do agree actually, because like you said, you can take any skill set into that trio of principles and continue to apply that and ultimately be good at your job. Yeah, or good in a collaborative and cohesive team, more importantly, because I think that's what sets you apart from being an individual contributor or a really key team player.
Yeah, I definitely agree, and it's the kind of values I live by pretty much day to day, not even in work. But I think as being in work and kind of being a successful team, they're kind of what you need to have.
Yeah, nice. So what are some of the challenges? I mean, you mentioned like resource challenges in terms of internal versus external, but is there anything else that you foresee managers or you've been through that you could face when trying to pivot a team that's maybe not performing as well to then being, you know, a high performing team? What are the challenges you'll face that you need to like anticipate?
Yeah, I think for me, a lot of the challenges we faced was when bringing the team in house was buy-in from the company.
Yeah.
As mentioned, the cost is quite high with it, but also the expectations I think then comes with it.
Yeah.
And it's kind of managing the onboarding of it, the skill sets, and then how you kind of process that to the wider team. Other challenges is definitely conflict within the team, because even though our recruitment process was to try and get the variables to fit in and be this puzzle, it might not always work, and there might be conflict and personality clashes.
Right. Yeah.
So it's kind of the one thing I kind of always look for when building a team is Tuckman's stage of team building, and it's how you go through from forming, storming, norming, and performing.
Yes. Yeah.
And you go through those stages, and out each variable you add to it kind of could set you back, and you have to kind of ride the wave and kind of get to that performing team. But it's constantly reviewing it. Challenges can be faced every day, and it's how you handle those challenges to just make the finer tweaks and kind of get 1% better every day as a team, and kind of build the culture, build the kind of the trust and the empowerment of the team.
Yeah, yeah. I love that 1% better every day, because I think when you're set with, you know, a big task, I need a successful team, they're not very good at the moment or whatever, or not performing, it's really easy to focus on the negatives, and every time that you don't hit an objective, a target, whatever, but actually looking at the small, incremental gains you can make, it would really kind of help shift your mindset, and then in turn every day gets better because you're constantly adding to the percentage of positive. So you've along with some of the challenges, then I can imagine a challenge you might face is embedding the right way of working or process. How did you go about that?
So that was during the code freeze, was kind of owning that and kind of reshaping the process that the external team had built in, both from a tech perspective and kind of outputting the work towards the company. So that was everything from pipelines and kind of even the function of taking it from a lean process to a scrum process.
Right.
Now, the challenges with that is the process that's working today doesn't mean it's going to be working tomorrow.
Yeah.
So it's constantly trying to review and refine it. So we do that through our kind of retrospectives, kind of look at what's working now, and kind of rather than the good, the bad, the ugly kind of perspective of a retro, it's the 4Ws I like to call it, which is what went well, what went wrong, what did we learn, and what can we change.
Nice. Yeah.
And
similar to good, bad, ugly, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just kind of reframing it a little bit more, just to kind of prompt it, because sometimes I find with especially tech functions is you sometimes have to prod them a little bit to get the answers out.
Yeah.
Because we're very structured in our 2-week sprints that we kind of either forget what we've done and we use that then process. So using the 4Ws kind of just initiates the talk. And get that, and then constantly review it and the key actions, and just kind of use that 1% then to kind of take it and redefine it slightly, just to kind of optimize the team, the processes, and then in the end, the output.
Yeah. Okay. And are your team on board with your way of thinking around, these 1% gains and getting involved in your retrospectives and open to process changes? Like, are they on board, would you say?
Yeah, it was definitely something that we tried to have within our hiring process, was kind of feed that into how they are with change.
Okay, yeah.
So one of that was joys of startups, sometimes having to have pivotal changes in kind of where you want to go to with the product, which then means 1 week we're doing this type of work, next week we're doing this, and that kind of quick change and kind of really helped, was embedded from the start. So it kind of helps now when we talk about it, we kind of look and review. And even though a lot of the process that I've set, I'm not opposed to switching it if it's what's working for us.
Fine.
Moving forward.
Yeah, so you, like you say, again, with culture or way of working, you've already embedded that from the beginning.
Yeah.
You set the expectation, they know what to be prepared for, basically. And like you say, you're hiring people that are kind of open to change and adaptable. Okay, brilliant. So it would be really good to understand then, or take away, kind of wrap up, what would you say your main principles are for building a successful team? Have you got, a list of go-to principles, would you say?
Yeah, so I think definitely know your starting point and have that clear vision of where you want to get to. Lead by example. So don't ask them to do something you wouldn't want to do.
Yeah.
If that's kind of working a little bit later to get to the deadline, make sure you're there to do it as well.
Yeah.
Open communication. So again, it's kind of iterating on the kind of 3 non-negotiables. Have that open communication that you can go to them and they feel like they can come to you with any issues, any queries, and make time for them. Because as you kind of step up from being that IC, you're in a lot more meetings, but know that they're there. You're there for them when needed. Within that as well, I try to promote that collaboration and teamwork. I might not always be able to jump on that call right now, but there is someone in the team that can, and don't be afraid to ask, because there are no silly questions. Every day is a kind of a learning day, and we want to continuously kind of learn and develop.
Absolutely. So you're saying there that you've got kind of multiples within the team that everyone can lean on. It's not just that single point of failure with yourself.
Yeah. So it's a lot of this it's kind of knowing the team's strengths and weaknesses. So whether it's a bit of front end, a bit of kind of back end development, or in some cases DevOps, that there's some kind of something wrong in our testing service, or how do we jump into it? Being a small team is kind of having that multidisciplinary kind of skill set, and being able to kind of, you might not know the answer, but working as a team, you'll kind of come up with it and find the solution.
Yeah. Okay.
Which kind of then leads on to the empowerment. Empower them to do that, so that they've got the knowledge to learn, and then you empower them to kind of have that, which then leads into the trust. Apart from that, the last one I would say is definitely kind of that tiny 1% kind of gain. Always review and kind of make the improvements to kind of just optimize for that successful team.
Lovely. Yeah, so you don't just build it and think, great, I've created something amazing here, it's going to stand the test of time. You've got to keep working it. Yeah,
it's kind of, I guess, like a car. You always need to kind of...
I mean, I like to think I get in my car and it goes, but that's not always the case.
No. So it's kind of the same as that. It's you need to have that service and kind of have the 6 monthly check. And rather than 6 months, it's kind of every 2 weeks for us. Okay,
love that. Well, thank you so much. And I'll have you here again.
Lovely, thank you very much.